When did you realize your significant other was the one to marry? When I took stock of my life and realized her not being a part of it made it a whole lot less appealing. We complement each other's personality, we don't blindly agree with the other one, and we make each other want to be the best versions of ourselves. If that's not a reason to marry someone, then I don't know what is.
That's a pretty solid realization. Finding someone who really gets you and pushes you to grow is important. It's not just about being together, but how that relationship makes you better. Sounds like you both have a good balance and connection, which is what a strong partnership is all about. Makes sense to consider marriage with that kind of foundation.
Honestly, shortly after meeting him, and before I was even in love with him, the first time I met him, I thought, I want this person in my life, even if it was just as a friend. It wasn't instant love, it was instant relaxation. My soul, everything inside me, relaxed in his presence. I'd never felt that sensation around anyone before. It sounds stupid, but our vibes just matched so well. And it didn't take long to realize that he had a good heart, made me laugh, was intelligent, mature, supportive, and an all-around great human being. Also, we were super compatible sexually. We started out as FWBs. Our 4-year anniversary is coming up, and I'm still insanely happy in this relationship.
It's nice how some connections just feel easy, right from the start. You meet someone, and it's like a weight lifts off your shoulders. Sounds like you found that in him. The vibe was just right, and having that mix of friendship and attraction makes for a solid foundation. 4 years is a good stretch. Glad to hear you're still happy together. It's important to find someone who balances it all out.
Early on in our dating, 6 months, had the textbook signs of meningitis, nuchal rigidity, lethargy, nausea, etc., and I convinced her stubborn self that it was more than just a head cold and she needed to go to the ER. I ended up only leaving the hospital once over the next 3 days as she recovered to go home and get cloths for the both of us and some homey sort of things. When she was more or less unconscious, eyes rolled in the back of her head, non-responsive, was when I realized that I couldn't live without her and that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. It's just about the 2-year anniversary, if you will, of the meningitis scare, and I'm heading across the world this summer to meet her family for the first time. She's on Reddit more than I am, so in case she sees this, I love you.
That's a pretty intense story. It's wild how moments like that can change your perspective on relationships. You realize what's really important when you're faced with something scary. Sounds like you both have come a long way since then. Meeting the family is a big step too. Hope that goes well for you. It's nice to see how love can grow even in tough situations.
The first time I saw her, seriously, she was new to our office, Air Force. And as I was walking out of an office, her sponsor was introducing her to everyone. I said hi and walked back to my desk. I immediately told my supervisor, I am going to marry her. True story. About 2 years later, we were married and are almost at our 27th anniversary.
That's kind of cool. It's funny how you can have that instant connection with someone. Just a simple moment turned into a long-term relationship. It's nice to think that sometimes you know right away. Almost 27 years is a solid run. It shows that initial spark can definitely lead to something meaningful. Just goes to show you never know where a quick hi can take you.
Our first date was a Neil Young concert. During Heart of Gold, he looked in my eyes, and I felt something that I've never felt before, even to this day. We only dated for 4 months before getting married, but I'd do it all again the same way. It's been hard, amazing, frustrating, and painful, but also worth every second just to be with him. We've been married for 6 years.
Sounds like a solid start to a relationship. Concerts can really set the mood. 4 months is quick, but sometimes you just know. It's cool that you've had ups and downs, but it seems like you're both committed. 6 years is a good stretch, and it's clear you've made it work through everything. Interesting how some moments can really stick with you over time.
The very first week I met her, there has literally never been another person who I relate to or can just talk to for hours on end like her. No one that can make me feel as happy or as infuriated as she does. No one else who can make me feel so concerned for their well-being. That's when I realized she was the one for me. 3 years this Saturday, smiley face.
It sounds like you found someone really special. It's interesting how some people just click, right? Those deep conversations and mixed emotions can really highlight a connection. It's cool that you've built something meaningful over 3 years. It's always nice to have that person who understands you so well and makes you feel everything at once. Here's to those lasting connections.
My moment was about 1.5 years into our relationship when we were in college. I didn't have Friday classes, so I came up Thursday night to surprise her. She got a snow day that Friday because we got like 13 inches of snow in a night. We spent the whole day out in the snow together, making snowmen and having snowball fights and making out in the snow. We talked about life in the snow, and that was when I knew we were going to get married. The engagement ring is actually being finished up today, so I'll be picking it up soon.
That sounds like a nice memory. Surprising someone is always a good move, especially with snow involved. Snow days have a way of making everything feel special. It's cool that you felt that connection in such a simple moment. Picking up the ring must feel like a big step too. Seems like you're moving in the right direction.
A few weeks into dating, we were walking home from a bar downtown. We saw that some idiot had ripped a plant out of a planter outside the front door of a restaurant. We were tired and far from home, but he stopped to repot the plant and try to scoop most of the dirt back in. Why would someone do that to this poor plant? He said. Right then I realized, I want this one. I want him. To his best ability, he will try leave the world in a better state than how it was when he entered it. And he gives a shit about things that are weaker than himself. That counts for a lot in my book.
It's funny how little moments can really say a lot about a person. I remember being out one night with a friend and we saw something similar. Someone had messed up a small garden, and he just stopped to fix it. It wasn't a big deal, but it showed he cared. It kind of made me think about the kind of people I want to have around me. That really stuck with me.
We had been dating for close to 1 year. I was feeling confident, and some of our mutual friends were throwing a party. She didn't want to go and wanted to hang out with me. I ditched her and went to the party anyways. I met a girl there, and she flirted really hard with me, but I just felt so much guilt. I ended up leaving the party and bringing my girlfriend pizza, ice cream, and flowers. She answered the door crying. We had a fight, and I stood up to walk out the door and never return. But I didn't. I turned around, and we had an amazing embrace. We stayed up all night cuddling and eating junk food and watching movies. It was then I knew I could never leave her. She was the only person I'd ever want again.
It's funny how things unfold. You think being carefree is the way to go, but that night really opened my eyes. I thought I could just enjoy the party, but guilt hit me harder than expected. Bringing the pizza and flowers felt like a small way to make up for it. That embrace was the turning point. It made me realize what I truly valued. Sometimes, it takes a rough patch to appreciate what you have.
When I realized that he liked me for who I am, not some idealized or future-improved version of me. When I realized I liked him just as he is, and even if he never changed, I would want to stay with him indefinitely. Even more when I realized he was willing to make some changes to adjust to being in a relationship. When I realized just sitting around with him doing boring, everyday shit or doing nothing at all was so damn fun. I wanted to do it for the rest of my life.
It's nice when you find someone who appreciates you for who you are. I remember feeling that way about a friend. We would just hang out, doing nothing in particular, and it was always enjoyable. There's a comfort in those moments. It's good to know that sometimes, just being together is enough to feel happy and content. That's what makes a relationship special.
Kind of hard to pinpoint one thing in particular, but when we were dating and talking about getting a place together, she said, we have to get at least a 2-bedroom, so we can each have our own space. I need my space. She respects that, and I respect her. It'll be 7 years in July. So far, so good.
That's pretty cool. Knowing each other's needs is important in a relationship. It's nice to hear you found that balance after 7 years. Having your own space can really help maintain a good vibe. Sounds like you both are doing well with it.
We were in our 5th hour of a 300 UG acid trip, and she was studying the leaves outside our window with intensity. One of the shoulder straps on her tank top fell slowly off her shoulder, and I decided to take a picture of her. Unfortunately, the shutter sound was quite loud, and she turned quickly to stop me. Too late. Then she smiled. I didn't ask her then because I didn't have a ring.
That sounds like a memorable moment. It's interesting how a simple action can turn into something special. The vibe of that scene, with the trip and her focus, shows a different side to our experiences. The unexpected smile must have changed everything in that moment. Sometimes, not having a plan can work out fine. Just living in the moment can create some unique memories.
Not married or even engaged, but I knew I would be with my forever about 2 months into dating. We had gone away on vacation for a weekend for the first time, and on the first night away I ended up getting pretty sick. He held my hair while I puked, went out in the middle of the night to find a store that was open so he could give me ginger ale. The hotel vending machine didn't have any, and just took care of me, and at that moment I knew he would take care of me for the rest of my life. That was 2 years ago, and we are currently in the process of buying a house. So even though we're not married, I plan spending my life with him.
That's a solid moment. When you realize someone's really there for you, it means a lot. I had a friend who got really sick during a trip, and the way their partner just stepped up was eye-opening. It's those small things, like holding hair back or running to find comfort, that show real commitment. Buying a house together sounds like a perfect next step for them.
I don't remember. I remember the day we met, and I remember the circumstances of our meeting, but I don't remember when I fell in love with her. It's only been 4 years, but it seems like I've always been in love with her. I can't remember a time I wasn't in love with her. I think there's some truth to those love at first sight stories.
It's interesting how love can feel so timeless. You meet someone, and it clicks. You can remember the first moment, but everything else just blends together. 4 years can fly by when you're in it, and suddenly, it feels like they've been a part of your life forever. Sometimes, it's just like waking up one day and realizing you can't recall life without them. It's a unique feeling.
Our first date. In our case, it was a long-distance relationship that I didn't want to call official until we met each other. So he drove up here, and we saw each other for 3 perfect days, and said a very painful goodbye. Then the jerk drove back to my house before leaving town to say goodbye again, making me cry more in response to my text, "I miss you already." I knew he was a keeper. We've survived getting an apartment together, getting a rabbit together, his surgery and recovery on his leg, job loss, buying a house together, hundreds of arguments over bills and money, a 1-week vacation in Florida, Disney, with his huge family all staying in one resort room. And we've recently just gotten a puppy. As tough as times have gotten, I don't think there is anyone else I'd rather get through them with.
It's cool how a long-distance thing turned into something so solid. That first meeting must have been intense, especially with that tearful goodbye. Going through all those life events together shows a real commitment. The ups and downs, like getting a rabbit and a puppy, really bond you. It's nice to see how you can handle everything together. Sounds like he's definitely a keeper.
When I was mature enough to value traits of a good mother, wife, and friend, and then met a woman that has every one of those, I knew after about a couple weeks of dating. Of course, it would have been weird to say that. Now we're 9 months in, and it's really just a matter of saving enough money for a proper ring.
It's nice to hear how you recognize those qualities in someone early on. Finding someone who embodies what you value in a partner is rare. It sounds like you're taking your time with the engagement, which is smart. 9 months is a good amount of time to know each other better. Hope the ring shopping goes well when you're ready. It's an important step.
One day I was looking at her and realized what an amazing, caring person she is, so much different than all of the others. All of the other women I've dated have been wrong in some way, dishonest, crude, mean, selfish, or otherwise flawed. When I think about how caring she is, and how I trust her 110%, and how she makes the world so much of a better place by being in it, I knew I had to lock it down. Plus, she's beautiful and has a nice sense of humor, smiley face.
It's nice when you find someone who stands out from the crowd. Trust is a big deal in relationships, and it sounds like she really gets you. A good sense of humor helps too. It's like a solid foundation for whatever comes next. Sometimes, it's just about recognizing the good in people and wanting to hold on to it. You know when it's right, and it seems like you know.
She got her wisdom teeth removed along with 4 other teeth and was on heavy painkillers. We were in the car when she looked at me and started to cry her eyes out. I've only seen her cry once, and it was only a couple tears. She also doesn't express her feelings toward me too well. I know she loves me though. When her mom asked her why she was crying, she pointed to me and said, "Because I love him," with a mouth full of gauze. I mouthed it back silently, and she started to cry even harder. I have all of this recorded on my phone, and every time I watch it, I know that I have to marry that woman as soon as I get out of school and have enough money to get her the ring I'm planning on proposing with. She might see this post, so I love you, babe. Red heart, smirking face, winking face.
That's a solid moment. Seeing her like that, vulnerable and raw, really shows the depth of your connection. The tears, the gauze, all of it made a simple car ride into something way more meaningful. Capturing that on video must be nice, since it shows how love can break through any barriers. It's good you're thinking about your future together. That kind of love is worth holding on to for sure.
I know a lot of you aren't religious, but here's my story. I had been dating a guy I'd known since I was 7 for 9 months. I was a freshman in high school, so marriage was the last thing on my mind. We were at church camp, and I felt God trying to tell me something about my future, so I went to talk to my pastor. He said God may be calling me to a ministry, or he could be calling me to marry someone in the ministry. Right then, I knew I was supposed to marry my dorky boyfriend. He ended up proposing the night I graduated. We got married 3 years later. It's been 4 years, and I had our first child this past January. We both are in music ministry.
It's interesting how life can take unexpected turns. You start dating someone you've known forever, not thinking much about the future. A moment at church camp shifts your entire perspective, and suddenly you're planning for a life together. Proposing right after graduation feels right, and now you're in music ministry with a kid. It's kind of nice how things just fall into place sometimes.
I just wanted to share the story of my parents. They first met when my mom was 15 and my dad was 20. My mom thought he was a gross old man, being 15 and all, and my dad had a girlfriend. They were co-workers, they were always friends, but nothing more. Then one day about 4 years later, my mom was on the bus home when she saw my dad walking his mom to the grocery store, and this thought just pops in her head. I'm going to marry that man and spend the rest of my life with him. After this, my mom started telling all her female co-workers, friends, that she called dibs on my dad. They've now been married for 32 years, and my dad still gives my mom a little pat on the butt, much to my dismay, but it's nice to know that they love each other, and a kiss every day.
That's a pretty cool story about your parents. It's interesting how they went from just being friends to something more. That moment on the bus must have been a turning point. It sounds like your mom really knew what she wanted. It's nice to see how they've kept that affection alive over the years, even if it makes you a bit uncomfortable. Shows that love can start in unexpected ways and last a long time.
The first time I saw him, he was a friend of a friend of a friend that came out to see a band at the same bar my friend was having her birthday party at. I just looked at him and immediately thought, this will be the man I marry and the father of my children. It was so strange because I never believed in love at first sight, and I was always very cynical about love/relationships anyways, very much not a Disney romance girl. I knew I had to talk to him, but he was very shy and was just standing off to the side by himself. And not talking to him, I made the first move and offered to buy him a drink. We started chatting from there and realized how much we had in common and started dating. In 1 month, we will celebrate our first wedding anniversary, and hopefully the children will be coming soon. Smiley face.
That sounds like a cool story. Meeting someone unexpectedly and having that instant connection is pretty rare. It's interesting how a simple conversation can lead to something serious. Taking the first step can be tough, but it looks like it paid off for you. Now you're heading into your first anniversary. It's nice to see someone who started out skeptical about love find it in their own way.
The day after the first night we met, our whole meeting was a whirlwind of impulsive decisions and one in a million chances. That first night, everything that could go wrong did. Yet we were as happy as could be and having a blast. At the end of the night, we ended up laying in the grass for hours looking at the stars, and he made me laugh hysterically by making up pretend constellations and the stories behind them. The next morning, I called my best friend back home and told him about the night and said that he doesn't realize it yet, but this is the man I'm going to marry. That was 2 years ago. About 2 weeks ago, we got engaged.
It's cool how one night can change everything. Just a bunch of spontaneous stuff, and then you find yourself laying on the grass, laughing about constellations. That's a nice way to connect with someone. Telling your friend you were ready to marry him just shows how you felt even back then. And now you're engaged. It's interesting how life works out like that. Kind of makes you appreciate those random moments.
We have been friends for years, and he saw me when I was going through breast cancer treatment. He told me I was the most beautiful, courageous woman he had ever laid eyes on. I ended up with a double mastectomy and no reconstruction. He was still attracted to me. Cancer-free 10 years. We finally got married in 2013.
That's quite a journey. It's good to have someone who sees beyond looks and supports you during tough times. Your story shows how true love can shine in the darkest moments. It's nice to hear you both have built a life together after such challenges. 10 years cancer-free is something to celebrate. Marriage seems like a fitting next step for you both.
I'm in high school, so needless to say, I haven't decided who I'm going to marry yet, but I've asked this question IRL, and this has been my favorite answer. Well, I'd always wanted to travel the world. It was my dream, but one day I pictured myself getting off the airplane an ocean away, and all I could picture myself thinking was, why did I come here? The best part of the world isn't a geography lesson. It's a person who I just left 13,000 miles away. The fact of the matter is, I've toured the streets of Paris, swum under the tropical sun, and hiked the mountains of the Pacific Crest, but I was never happier doing any of those things than I am just going on a drive to nowhere with her. Traveling is still my dream. I haven't given that up, but I could never leave her behind knowing how much more beautiful the world is when she's at my side.
That's a relatable perspective. It shows how connection can really change how we experience things. Traveling is great, but it means more when you can share those moments with someone important. Those spontaneous drives can lead to the best memories, even if it's just about enjoying the company. It's kind of a reminder that the journey is more about the people we have around us than the destinations we reach.
I don't remember the day, but we're long distance, so we don't get to sleep together very often. I woke up one of the days that he was home, and he was still asleep next to me. My cat was asleep on top of his chest, and it just hit me, I want this every morning for the rest of my life. We're finally closing the distance after 4.5 years next month. I can't wait.
That sounds nice. Waking up next to someone you care about can really change your perspective. It's cool that you and your partner are about to close that distance after so long. Those little moments matter a lot. Hope you get to create more of those mornings together soon.
My wife and I had a long-distance relationship. I lived in NJ at the time. She lived with family in WV. She would take the train up to visit for a week or so at a time, and then go home for a few weeks. After doing this for a while, I realized I wanted her with me the rest of the time, but she was torn because of working with her mom and helping to look after her grandmother. I felt that as boyfriend/girlfriend, it would be easy to drag our heels about making a bigger change in our living situation. I'm glad we didn't wait much longer. We got engaged in August, she moved up full-time by March, and we got married the next August. We held the wedding at my grandparents' big house with a huge party-ready basement, and it was one of only a handful of events that brought my whole family together in recent years prior to my grandfather's death the next April. If we dragged our heels, that and other things that have happened since might have made things much harder on us or less jubilant for our day.
Seems like you guys figured it out in the end. Long distance can be rough, but you made it work. Getting engaged and making those big moves shows a lot of commitment. It's nice that the wedding brought everyone together before your grandfather passed. Those moments matter. If you'd waited, who knows how things would have turned out. Life has a way of pushing you towards the important stuff when you take the leap.
I was walking home from work after a long day early on in our relationship, and I get a text from him telling me how amazing he thinks I am and he hopes I had a great day. We've been together for 5.5 YRS and just got married last weekend. I still get cute texts from him telling me how much he loves me. Always makes me smile, smiley face.
That's nice to hear. It's good to have someone who appreciates you. Little messages like that can really brighten your day after a tough one. It sounds like you both have a solid connection. Congrats on the wedding too. It's those simple reminders of love that keep things going strong.
I met my so while working abroad on assignment. On my way through airport security as part of a short break back home, I suddenly realized that at some point in the near future there would come a time where I'd be going through airport security for the final time, without her. Damn near broke down on the spot. There and then. To me, marriage means doing whatever you must to ensure you're with your so. Edit. Spelling. I'm tired.
That's a tough moment to realize. Airports can be emotional places, especially when you think about future goodbyes. It hits hard when you consider the finality of it all. Knowing that marriage is about being there for each other through everything really puts things into perspective. Taking those steps together is what matters in the end. It's all about the commitment and making sure you support one another.
She's literally the only person on earth I ever saw myself with. There have been others, but when you see and talk to your soulmate, you just know it's them in a weird way that's unexplained. Perfect is an understatement for what you should feel to your wife, because that's exactly how I feel about mine. Smiley face.
That's a pretty genuine reflection on love. It's interesting how some connections feel so right, like they're meant to be. I think everyone hopes to find that person who just clicks with them on another level. It's good to hear you found yours, and it sounds like you both vibe really well together. That kind of bond is rare.
When she randomly kissed me at a party, I used to work for her. We kept in touch. Never hung out or anything. Just Facebook friends and the occasional text. Then 2 years later we hang out. Start going out to the bar. I was her cock block, so she wouldn't sleep with other guys. But one night her friend throws a housewarming party, and she invited me. And halfway through the night, she kisses me. She was in the middle of a conversation with someone, and she just kissed me. In that moment, I decided I want to go as far as this goes. A drunken kiss, a one-night stand, a casual thing, or a long-lasting relationship. I didn't care, I was in, but it turned out she felt the same. We wanted the whole thing. So we got married less than a month later. Still happy. Still the best decision of my life. TLDR, not soon enough.
It's funny how unexpected moments can change everything. We knew each other from work but didn't hang out much. Then that party happened. One kiss led to realizing we wanted more. It was a quick shift from friends to something serious. My approach was simple, just seeing where it went, and it turned into a marriage in no time. Sometimes, spontaneity really works out in the end.
I met my husband in grade 1. We had a crush on each other as little kids do. I moved away the following year, of course, we didn't stay in touch. I moved back 8 years later in junior high, and he happened to be at that school too, but didn't recognize me. I switched schools again that year too, we never spoke. Fast forward to after graduation working in fast food, and a friend of mine, also best man at our wedding, invites me over to play video games and shoot the shit. Go over, and there he is. We instantly clicked. I knew then I would marry him. We were friends for 6 months, started dating a couple months after I broke up with my BF, got engaged after a year, and married a year and a half after that. Going on 3 years this year in July. Couldn't be happier.
It's kind of wild how things work out. You meet someone in grade school, and life takes you in different directions. Then, just by chance, you run into them again years later. It's like the universe nudged you two back together. It's cool that it turned into something serious after just hanging out as friends for a bit. Now, 3 years of marriage sounds pretty solid.
I was dating her for a few months, and I went away for law school 150 miles away. We said we would just try it out and see where it goes. Well, she came and visited me early on, and we went out to dinner. I remember thinking at that dinner that if we can make it through the first semester, then we would make it through the 3 years of law school. Then I thought if we made it through law school, we would get married. Then after that dinner, I realized we will make it through this first semester. I'm graduating next month, and I'm asking her to marry me this fall, after the bar exam. I love her and can't picture my life without her.
That's a solid plan you got there. Going through law school together must have made your bond stronger. It's nice to see how you envisioned your future step by step. Asking her to marry you after you graduate sounds like a good idea. It's clear you value her and see her in your life long term. Just keep it honest and real, and you'll be alright.
It's incredibly boring, but we met in college, started dating, combined finances, got an apartment, graduated, got jobs, then got another apartment. After a few weeks of work, I was looking at everything and working out some basic retirement planning. When I realized that I was planning for 2, that's when I knew I should propose.
That's a straightforward journey. Meeting in college and evolving together makes sense. It's practical to combine finances and plan for the future. The moment when retirement planning became a shared thing is interesting. It shows commitment beyond just dating. Proposing after realizing that makes it feel more serious. It's like you both leveled up in your relationship without needing a big event. Just planning and growing together.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.